Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of Golarion, the setting for the Pathfinder role-playing game system? Grab my hand, take it, as I, your host and guide here, Cantus Narrative and Dracovin, I'm going to lead you through my gate that I've created to plane shift us back to Golarion, back to the Inner Sea region, learn about Isger. So if you're ready to join me, please grab my hand. I've opened the gate. Remember to leave a tip for your guide here today, to like, subscribe, and bell and video over on YouTube sections. As we travel once more to Golarion, we've reached the Inner Sea region, Vasti. Isger. Interesting nation. Well, now that we're here, we should learn as much about it as we can, and what kind of places. Well, we can access a few books to learn extra information. The campaign setting, the Inner Sea World Guide, a great place, and of course the World Guide from 2nd edition can lead us in learning more about Isger just by its simple nature that it seems to be. But what is that simple nature? Well, it is in fact a simple nature because it's the vassal state of Cheliax. It is, in the eyes of Cheliax, not really a sovereign nation. It's a trade route, a glorified one. It's an area that they can move their trade from their ports into the center of the Inner Sea region, into the Lake Encarthian region, and into Druma and the nearby nations there. Of course, this nation, from its capital of Eldiar, is ruled over by its steward? Puppet? The steward of Isger, Hedvend the Sixth. Regardless, though, this interesting individual does rule the nation. We'll talk about it. But, yes. And of course, being connected with Cheliax, major religions are Asmodeus. But it turns out that other diabolism is in popularity with certain groups, and Rasta actually happens too. It's not as more because of the nature of the country, there just isn't as much push down as Cheliax is. Remember, they're just a trade route. They don't need to enforce Asmodean rule, not quite as much as we hope. Now we have to look at the history, and this is a major part of it. The Goblin Blood. We'll get to this here, but this is a founding moment in the history of Isger. It was originally founded in 2133 AR, so that would be about 1600 years earlier than today in Golarion standards, and it was after Taldor's 7th Army of Exploration defeated an indigenous inhabitants, the Isger, who were a group of Keldan tribes. The Isgeri fought the Taldans tenaciously, but were eventually conquered and pacified. And recognizing their great courage and determinations, the Taldan crown basically named its province after the tribe, Isger. Now, Isger found some success with the dwarven nation nearby of Karadon, which was founded in 3279, 1,000 years later. This was the first time that they were more than just a small territory, because within the Five Kings Mountain, southeast of them, this nation formed, with its capital of Jerenschnau. That became an important trade center in the region. It became so important that the governments of Taldan provinces of both Isger and Cheliax petitioned the dwarves to build a surface city to increase access to dwarven goods and services. Rosari Canton was built as a sister city to Jernashau in 3451, and it became the trade center for this region for over 500 years. So, success and greatness was built on Isger as part of the trade network. It's not to wonder why it's not a glorified trade network, because it built itself on that very heavily. This was the first time it had something great. But unfortunately, this ended about 500 years after it started, when both cities were destroyed by the eruption of Volcanus Droskor's Crag in 3980, about 750 years ago. So, yeah. So Isger, in this history, remained a province of Taldor for nearly 2,000 years, until another province, Cheliax, broke free of its imperial masters during the Even-Tongue War. In 4081, Cheliax wrested control of Isger from Taldor, and then it became a vassal state of Cheliax, and it's been that way ever since. Even when other vassal states, like Andor, Galt, successfully rebelled about Cheliax in the 47th century AR, Isger remained firmly in Cheliax's black grasp. So basically, Isger is one of the few vassal states that's deep in Cheliax's hold, in comparison to all the other vassal states, which most have broken away. As the vassal faced first Caldor, later by Cheliax, basically its resources have been exploited for millennia. So now, the only thing it really has to offer to any of its masters is its trade route that connects Cheliax's sea trade with the rich nations bordering Lake Carthan to the northeast. This route that leads up the Concertia River from Cheliax past their Isger capital of Elidur, and their overland into the nation of Druma, being the rich nation, I think the first video I did in this series. As a result, a lot of Isger's government has concentrated most of its resources to the communities along this route, leaving the rest of the nation to become an impoverished, bandit-infested hinterland. Yeah! Now we get to the Goblin Blood Wars. Goblin Blood Wars weren't that long ago. Going to say that. They were not. This was from 4697 to 4701. That's not all. You have to consider that the current year is, of course, 4724. So we're talking just basically 25 years ago. Basically, hundreds of tribes of goblinoids, including powerful hobgoblin warlords and their goblins, slaves, emerged from Chitterwood in the southern Isger, killing all in their path. Isger's army was unable to stem the invasion. They were eventually defeated by an unlikely alliance of military forces from neighboring nations. The Eagle Knights of Andoran, the Hell Knights of Cheliax, and the Mercenary League of Druma all united and fought together because they kind of saw the fact that if Isger fell to the goblinoid forces, they would just overrun and sprawl out into their nation. So better fight them and defeat them here in Isger rather than allow them to come into our nation and have to deal with it then. With them defeated, the victors put much of the Chitterwood to torch and attempted to deprive the goblinoids of a home. A few thousand died in the conflagration, but many went into the caverns beneath the forest and survived. There were heavy losses on both sides, especially amongst the Isger, and thousands of orphans were left to fend for themselves after the hostilities ended. Their numbers even contributed to the rise in post-war period chaos and banditry that continued to sweep throughout the hinterlands. It was already a problem, it got worse. Remember, most of that area was bandit-infested and impoverished. It wasn't that bad because it's just kind of ignored. Now, with a lot of people dead and everything that happened, it's even more ignored. There's even less things to help keep the bandits in check. The only organization that has stepped up to help the orphans is the Church of Asmodeus, supported by House Thrune and Cheliax. They built a number of monasteries throughout the country where they fed, clothed, and indoctrinated Isger's youth into the faith of the Prince of Law. The most famous of these is the monastery run by the Sisters of the Golden Earnest, where children were not only schooled in infernal philosophy and politics, but hard to master arcane martial arts. Ooh, nice. Now, one final thing that's been going on recently is that trade caravans have reported strange sightings near the village of Gillamore, on the edge of the Chitterwood. Its inhabitants have been transformed into ravenous undead, the Gillamore Plague, which has spread to nearby villages as well. It's blamed on necromancers and priests of Orgatha, who are believed to have taken advantage of the chaos in the hinterlands following the wars. Some even believe that the most powerful of those affected countries is a diabolist named Lady Caltesia Illis, a cleric of Archdevil Mammon, a diabolist. She's rumored to have secretly controlled the rulers and building an undead army, and help basically from the dead of the goblin wars. But we'll kind of hint on some of these things in a little bit here. But you can see, Isger kind of is in a terrible spot right now. Nonetheless, let's take a look at what geography they have and the cities. Here's a nice picture of the nation. You can see what Chitterwood is, the Mandor Mountains, the nice river that cuts through the center of the entire nation. So, it has the pleasure of being between two powerful economic powerhouses in Bastia. Of course, the merchant calistocracy of Druma to the north and Cheliax to the south. It controls the only gap between the five King Mountains and Mendor Mountains. As a result, has the Commercia Strats, one of the most profitable trade routes in Bastia, running through its center. So yeah. So there are three Servant Mountain range, and of course the Five Kings, the Mendor Mountains, and the Aspodal Mountains in the south. The plains between the Aspodal and Five Kings connects Isger to Andorian, and is the Isger Pass. The Chitterwood was burnt after the Goblinoid Wars, but it is still a geographic feature. And of course beneath it is the Goblinoid tribes. Maybe they were trying for another invasion, maybe not. And being landlocked, it just has its big old river, the Conacher River, and also has the Kelly, too. As for cities, Breachill is a small town there in the foothills of the Five King Mountains. This is the Ashes of Age of Ashes adventure path, so I won't go into a lot of details about that. But there's a small town council in charge of that place. Dustpawn is a town in eastern Isger, several miles from the river and close to the borders with Druma, founded in 4324. It was a mining community, but the iron lodes near there played out early in Cheliax's rule over Isger. It transitioned to raising goats, which is its main source of revenue. Its proximity to Druma has kept it largely safe from the Goblinoid Wars, which also increases demand for ores. So, of course, there's Elidor, its capital, which is really just a large city. It's only about 12,000 people. It's far from the Chitterwood. It escaped the worst of the Goblin Blood Wars. A fact that still engenders bitterness in a lot of places where homes were overrun. There's a common belief that through the rest of the company that the capital had been in greater danger during the war, the fighting would have been much faster, basically. It's still a very important trade port in the Consortia Straits trade route. It's a popular stopping place for a lot of caravans. It can be bypassed using ramp roads. They don't want to stop there. The famous ramp roads. So you don't need to stop at Elidor, depending on your time of day, where you're going, and all that kind of thing, so you want to keep going. But you could there. There is, of course, the city of Itran's Folly, originally named Atranton, also known as Plaguestone. It's seen better days. Yeah. It basically is named for Atranton's Bolmir, an immigrant from Taldor that was one of its founders. It was struck by an epidemic right after the Goblin Blood Wars, where nearly half died, and gave that moniker to its. There's Gillimore, which survived the Goblin Blood Wars, but now is basically an undead bastion. According to the Caravan Guards of the Mercenary League, it's filled with zombies. It's been quarantined by the army of Ascari, the Ascari army. Leaders secretly hope that the steward's 5,000 gold piece reward for eliminating undead plague will convince outsiders to cleanse the town for them. There are a few villages still believed to be alive and sieging themselves in barricaded homes, but how long that'll last. Hoggin's Ear is on the Kellig River, south of the Chitterwood, on the borders with Cheliax. It's named for a local stone outcropping on the riverside of town shaped like a giant's head and ear. There's also Logus, the second city of the nation of Isger. It was the capital until that honor passed to Elidor, and nobility dreamed of restoring it to its rightful status as the country's first city. It's located near the border of Cheliax and close to the Chitterwood. Its walls are decorated with goblin corpses, and the city's war energy regularly launched large rocks into the forest to keep the goblinoid properly cowed after the disastrous Goblin War, and to try to avoid it. The Sardingalo is a town located on the Concertia River, south of the capital of Eladar. It was founded as the garden estate of a Cheliaxian noble, Sarani, in 4425. Basically brought peasants to maintain the farms and stuff, and it became a city eventually. Swift Run is a village of superstitious people located on the Concertia River about 50 miles south of Sarangalo. And Amok is a gnome settlement that can be found in the central region of the northeastern edge of Chitterwood. It suffered an existence rife with conflict with local goblin tribes, and only intervention of visiting gnome paladin of Shelin, Chalo Fignoble, protected Umok in the final battles of the Goblin Blood Wars. Because they'd become a target. So, yeah, it survived though. It did survive with help of that power. Let's talk about the government and this nice man in charge. Here's Steward Hedvend the Sixth. So he's officially the ruler, but it is that open secret that he takes his order from House Thrune in Cheliax. He's summoned to Agorian, the capital of Cheliax, very often enough, regularly, to receive his instructions. The emblems of the office of the Steward of Isger is a bejeweled yet expended rod of rulership, symbolizing the apparent grandeur of the position with little, if any, true power. So it's that kind of joke. The rod of rulership being a magic item, it has charges. It's been expended. It just looks nice now. Rumors do circulate that the long-served Steward might be compelled to relinquish his seat. House Thum seemed to deem him incompetent, maybe having someone more capable on the throne. In Isger, rumors elicit indifferent shrugs as Heved's widely perceived as a Cheliaxian puppet, little concerned with his ability to aid his own people. Remnants of massacred towns and unmarked graves, neglected since the Goblinoid, have served as a haunting reminder of his basically failures. So, we do have to talk about, when we talk about in charge, Cheliax. Basically, they're in charge of the entire nation. And because of also, it is connected to some other nearby former colonies, Andoran, cough cough, it has bad relations with them. And, you know, it would have been more of a trouble, but Goblin Blood Wars happened, and now Isger's not really a trouble for Andoran anymore. Basically, a decent amount of its hinterlands are into banditry, lawlessness, and, you know, this has impacted its neighbors. The Five King Mountains, the dwarfs there, have begun to complain that the Isgarian government that basically bandits have begun to trickle across the border because they're not doing anything about it. And remember those orphanages I talked about? Their success hasn't gone unnoticed. Basically, Cheliax is looking at the decline of its empire, its adversaries growing its strength, losing most of its vassal states. So seeing this potential investment of possible frontline defense against Andoran as a good thing. Oh, we've indoctrinated and created this powerful group of children under our group from these orphans. That's really great. Maybe we should keep up this and indoctrinate more people. So this has meant more Cheliaxian presence there, too. In this end of things, you're not just a trade route. You also have other uses. And it's got mixed feelings in Isger. There are those that welcome it, those that resent it, and basically, they are bolstering their vassal state, which does seem to be a significant development from how they've treated it forever. Now, they don't have a standing army. This is an emblem of their army, and they lack a proper standing army basically after everything that happened to the Goblin Wars. They do have an army, but it's too small to effectively protect all of the country. So now it patrols its trade route, the Concertia Straits, basically attempting to curb banditry, and, you know, in that area, but the outlying areas are rife with it. So the Steward has instead issued bounties on known brigands. It's not like clear if this is having an effect, but the Steward continues to give the impression that he cares very little about what happens outside the trade route. And Cheliax's main interest being the trade route and keeping that open also means they put very little support towards anything else. Basically, they're like, your army's enough to keep the trade route open. You're good. You don't need any more than that. So, it does have a bit of an economy beyond that, too. It exports lumber, food, ore, and mainly imports basic manufacturing goods. Now, the trade deficit with Cheliax, being a vassal state, so tolls and tariffs placed on items shipped via the Concurrier Strait trade play a crucial role in its economy. So yeah, basically, keeping money flowing because of that is basically the only thing that keeps it going nowadays. Hey, remember that orphanage I mentioned? The one that's indoctrinating people, run by the Sisters of Golden Uranus? Hey, there's a nice picture. So who lives here? Well, humans do. A lot of other humanoids do. Humans and other humanoids do. The human population is the dominant one of the citizens, but even then, a lot of the citizens are devastated by the Goblin Blood Wars. All those orphans under the House of Asmodeus, all these monasteries, indoctrinating people, it's a big thing. Of course, you do still have Amok, the gnomish town. There's a large halfling population in the region. And prior to Cheliax abolishing slavery in themselves and their vassal states, in the Emancipation Edict of 4722, just 2 years ago, a lot of the halflings that were in this area were slaves. So now, this very large halfling population in the region is free. Well, it's not really great news to me. And a lot of these people, these slaves, were brought in to help the Church of Asmodeus work at those orphanages. So then they might just get paid, I guess, and have better luck. It's better for them. It is better for them, but, the country's a mess. So you were brought into a place to serve some people, and now you're free, and now they didn't let you flee in a really great place. So, it's better. A bit. The country sucks. Anyway, Isger is not in great shape. Have you noticed that I don't feel great about Isger, and I feel bad for a lot of the people that live there, no matter what? I do. I feel really bad. There's still goblins, goblinoid creatures. And the goblinoid war killed thousands of their kind. They still are a major center of goblinoid culture in all of Vastia. But it is important to note, something new has come out of the Goblin Blood Wars. A new breed of leader that's emerged since then. Basically, a lot more of the chieftains, the people in charge, are actually of greater intelligence and more foresight than their predecessors led them on. Remember, goblinoids effectively lost the war. Granted, it was a slaughter on both sides, so there really wasn't a real leader, a winner there, but it really didn't do well. And these new tribes have united to form an alliance, basically. These new tribes, where the leaders are leading with more intelligence, and basically thinking ahead about things rather than just acting. Many of them actually have taken the initiative to engage in diplomatic exchanges with nearby non-goblinoid settlements. Scar wars are fresh, but they have established a number of successful mutual defense pacts with these small rural towns and villages. Because the fact is, they've been accustomed to negotiating their own affairs independently, basically because the government hasn't cared about them even before the Goblin Blood Wars. They never cared about them. And finding that some of these goblin leaders are more reliable allies than their own lords has been impressive. The dedication cooperation has basically begun to reshape how the goblins are viewed in this region. It's being seen that the goblinoid population emerged from the war in a better place than they were before. And might make something of themselves a lot more now because they have an opportunity to, and the people there are willing to work with them because their government has said, poo-poo on you. And they can start building something bigger and better. It's a fascinating thing that's resulted from this. The result of this war has been positive in some ways, mostly negative. Now, Isger is home to some number of dragons. Now, I'm going to talk about how the dragons are in pre-core lore before the revisal. But, again, we don't know what type of dragons they are now. Freedom-loving copper dragons, who are just probably freedom-loving dragons, have been fighting a guerrilla war against the government to end the tyranny. They immigrated from Andoran, where their presence threatened the economy and ecosystem. in southern Isger, they occasionally have the threat of the dragon, Dathrorix, who was a red dragon, who knows what now, who lairs in the Five Kingdom Mountains to the southeast. It's rare, but disastrous, because it's one of the most powerful great worms of its kind in Golarion. Again, the types of dragons they are now, don't know, because again, we've changed, we no longer have metallic or chromatic dragons in the lore. As of the time of this video, what they are, we haven't determined. Related to them, flame drakes are in Darkmoon Vale. Region of Andoran have begun raiding southeast Isger as part of the Isger Pass. On a mundane level, there is a well-known Vulpine, the Firefoot Fennec, a small thought-like creature that is sometimes domesticated and traded as pets and seen symbols of good luck. And then, of course, now we have the undead that are plaguing the area, which is a problem. The Gillimore and places like Finder's Gulch that have been dealing with it. So yeah, cultists devoted to Kurogatha have been spreading across the battlefields here because there's plenty of bodies and corpses all around from both sides that they can just take on. And also, now that Tarbafond has ascended, some claim that these are people not even connected with him. Maybe, maybe not. Hard to say, but certainly speaking, it's a mess. Hey, remember that lady I talked about who may be in charge of the undead armies creating the Diabolist? Lady Clotelsa? There she is. She's a nice lady. Being a nation that's a thrall of Cheliax, there's a lot of cultural similarities with Cheliax. They celebrate Chelaxian holidays, like Loyalty Day. The river and trade routes serve as a vital lifeline for travelers and merchants, rendering its settlements along its banks. Far from isolated rural villages, their wooden structures and quaint architecture would imply. Despite their rustic appearances, characterized by pierced balusters, colorful glass beads hangings, and vividly painted frieze boards, the towns of Isger exhibit a surprising cosmopolitan atmosphere. In fashion, their commoners wear brightly embroidered colors, and women's tunics appear with prized glass beads. Religiously, Asmodeus is still king, though, again, Diabolism has been on the rise. Yay, Diabolism. And we can see that with other important figures that worship other devils. And of course, Rastal has been an important faith in there, as well as Milan, that have formed for other faiths, especially outside the major routes where everybody's left to fend for themselves. You're on your own. Do whatever you're going to do. No one cares about you. Bye. But that's Isger. It's a nation that's seen a lot of stuff. I mean, in the last 50 years, it's been through stuff. Even the last 25 years. The Goblin Blood Wars have shaped the nation as it is. It's in terrible shape. Its trade route is maintained, but Cheliax's fall from power in the last century has been a massive one. And it can be shown that fall from power influencing Isger in a lot of ways. Certainly speaking, it's a place that's now more important because it is that last bastion. It's that hold of some economy, that little nugget of empireship that Cheliax definitely holds on to, wants to keep. Having the slaughter, the undead, the mess that's going on there, it's not doing good. The nation's not doing good. But there are some good things coming out. I mean, it's that thing that the small villages that are out there in Isger have always been around. Now the bandits are worse. A lot more people are dead. There's a lot more trouble. But it's only a little bit different than they were. Those that survived, hey, you know what? We survived. We've been around. No one had cared about us. We've always been left alone. And now, certainly, with the actual change in the goblins in their ways of doing things that were in this forest, there's an evolution in their own culture and group because of the deaths on their side. Things went so bad for them, they're like, oh, hey, our old way of doing things doesn't work here. We've got to change. We've got to evolve. And they have been. If anything changes that Isger is lost to Cheliax, it's going to cause from the small places. I think the influence of Andoran with the changes in these cultural things there probably won't be another Goblin Blood War. That doesn't to say a powerful figure couldn't lead the goblins and change their way of doing things back to the old ways. But currently as it stands, I don't think another war like that could occur. Especially when we've seen the rise of things like the Hobgoblin Nation nearby, within the region. That's going to say something a lot about how things can change and evolve. And it's also like the lack of power, lack of wanting to be involved of anything of the nation, lack of real influence of Cheliax. So, say for this interesting thing about orphans as a defensive measure, which is kind of dark, you know. They abolished slavery for not good reasons, but they did, which was good in the end. But not good reasons behind it, they just were dealing with a rebellion that they had quashed and didn't want another one. You know, so there's like that kind of thing. So, again, it's this weird sit that Isger is on the thumb of Cheliax, and Cheliax is keeping that thumb as tight as it can right now. Cheliax has his own problems, so is that thumb tight enough? I don't know. It's a mess in that region. And that's the best way to say it. It's a mess. I think that'll be it for today. I hope you enjoyed learning about Isger. It's an interesting nation that's gone through a lot. It's been abused by everyone that's ruled over it, and certainly speaking, the war that was battled in there, the Goblin Blood Wars, has done its damage. So, with everything left over from it, I don't know. You know, it's had a lot of big results. And Oprak, being the new nation that's formed there, it's, yeah. It's a better place to live than, you know, here sometimes. Anyway, I did hope you enjoyed learning about this. We'll visit more places. I think there's a couple more places in Inner Sea regions still to talk about. I've talked about a lot of them, but I'll talk about more nations in Golarion in the future, and more stuff around the world of Pathfinder. There's a lot of interesting lore there. I hope this was inspiring for you to possibly have some adventures in Isger. There's some openings for adventures certainly there. Lots of ruins, the undead threat, maybe negotiating with local goblinoids to make peace with a village here or something like that, maybe acting as a go-between a group of adventurers or something like that. There's a lot of reasons to, you know, have some adventures. I hope it's inspiring. Yeah, let me know in the comments if it's inspired you, because if you want to check out more of my stuff, I do have a schedule up. Comments on YouTube, as it were, or afterwards live over on Twitch. But my schedule, it shows you when I'm going live over on Twitch to record these or do any kind of gaming stuff, or when I upload stuff on YouTube. That goes up on my Discord, my Blue Sky, my Twitch/X, and of course on my YouTube channel. The YouTube side stuff is very exact. Only if there's like video issues or, you know, something happens in my life that I really can't get an upload done, does something change there. Most of the time, though, that's pretty good. The Twitch side is a little bit more malleable just because that is built around my life schedule as it works. But usually I do the things on those days, so you'll catch me. And checking out that social media is a great place to learn when anything are changing. Remember, check out my live plays. I've done some Pathfinder in the past, which you can check out. First editions I've played. I'm planning on doing some second edition, but I've also done some D&D and Wolf Darkness video series where you can check out them old. I do recommend all of them. They get better as they age, but I think all of them are fun to see some adventures I've had with some people. And then remember, check out Discussing Tabletop on Saturdays. It's a time to see the news of the week and deeper discussions and interesting topics. Alright, I'm going to get going. We hang out with Twitch, maybe we'll do another video, maybe we'll do something else. But until the next time, we dive into the Inner Sea region, Bastion, another area of Golarion, or something else related to it. I bid all of you out there a deep and farewell.